It's lovely to see you all. The library has been fabulous about supporting this program throughout the closure. They are getting extremely busy now with the curbside pickups and allowing people to reserve up to 25 materials ahead of time. So we're probably going to be switching to me doing the online next month, and the library will still help. They will still post it on their website, and they will also be helping to edit it, and then it will be cross-posted on YouTube after the event. So the silver lining, as there have been during this close shutdown, is that we've discovered that people who couldn't physically attend can attend. We have gotten ourselves onto YouTube. And so, unlike before, and it's a long time dream of mine and probably Esther's, that people who weren't able to be there at the night of the event can join us later on and can still watch it. So we're getting more and more YouTube viewers, and I encourage you all to visit. We've had a number of people like Roselle has read for us, probably some other people who are here. And so it doesn't matter whether you missed April, May, or June. You can go back and watch them. So it is my great pleasure now to introduce Pam, or Pamela Moore-Dion. And she was scheduled before our lives changed. So bravo to being willing to join us in our different format. She is a poet. We will hear background noises. I believe that the library will be muting you all when the reading begins. So, poet, writer, and visual artist Pam Moore-Dion's work has appeared in a number of journals, including Shenandoah and Pontoon. She was a Jack Straw writer, received their artist support grant to record a CD of her, and you may have to correct my pronunciation on this, Sabina Spielrein Gazelle series. Dion earned a Centrum Foundation residency and a Washington State Artist Trias Gap grant. Her visual art has been published in journals and presented in one-woman shows. Other credits include founding and managing the online art and literature journal Literary Salt. Dion received her MFA from Goddard College. Great pleasure to welcome to our reading tonight, Pam and Dion.
Thank you, Peggy. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this virtual reading. As one of the writers published in It's About Time anthology, So Dear Writer, I'd like to thank Peggy Sturdivant and Esther Helfgott for this opportunity to step away from prose and read my poetry with Tamara K. Selman and Lauren Davis, whose work I admire. I'd also like to thank Mona and the Ballard branch of the Seattle Public Library for making the reading possible. Tonight's pieces come from my first chapbook of poetry, Paradox and Illusion. Published by Finishing Line Press, the book is running late at the printer, but should be arriving soon for all of you who pre-ordered a copy. I've been getting a lot of emails from friends about that. The book is available to order at finishinglinepress.com. It's also available at Imprint Bookstore in Port Townsend, Washington. Typically, my themes revolve around myth, the natural world, relationships, science, and spirituality. I'll open with the only form poem I plan to read tonight because the opening line of this sestina gave the book its title. And since I'm not teaching a class on writing sestinas, I'll just tell you that the form uses word repetition in a very specific pattern. You may notice that the repetitions enhance the poem's rhythms. Here goes. And just by way of explanation for the title, Merriam-Webster defines orogeny as the process of mountain formation by the folding of the Earth's crust. Orogeny. Paradox and illusion define this coast, built by the subduction of Juan de Fuca plate. This is the birthplace of mountainous rock where magnetic reversals align themselves against the pole's forces. We struggle to define history. While we walk, I analogize history as struggle, a beating against the coast of our beings, our internal forces dragged down by sinking plates, morphosed dense material, fighting to align and not to align, like this rock. Walking a rhythmic heel toe, I rock back and forth between geologic history and my own. My body aligns itself with the waves along this coast. I try to think about tectonic plates, avoid all references to internal forces. But these are not to be denied, these forces that push against what I want to know, that rock my belief, leaving me with an empty plate, making me face my history, our history. Unable any longer simply to coast on an ignorance of what does not align. And then I see it. There is a line beyond which we have crossed. It forces collisions and collapse. We cannot coast safely past this rough rock. It is made of habit and history, the stuff of which we have filled our plates. This story is dark with lithograph plates that do not equally align. We have printed an orogenic history full of anticlines and stratified forces. This shifting sandstone is the rock that built our coast. We must leave the coast, trudge the uplifted plate where a horseshoe of rock moves solidly along the line. We must attend these forces and shape our own history. Thank you for all of that. This next poem needs a little explanation of the phenomenon being described. Ocean phosphorescence, commonly seen at night, is caused by the bioluminescence of certain plankton. Pleiades. This blue peacock night, thumbnail sketch of moon, Pleiades at 3 o'clock, white roar of waves, skim milk puddles reflect light on wet sand, shorebirds blustering, forage shallows, small feather winds. Venus setting, Orion bold, the dandelion puff of a distant cluster, just visible as haze. We are all sisters here tonight, strutting over wet scrim salts, marking miniature phosphorus galaxies, tap dancing them into being. We leap, land. Our feet strike sparks and Ursa Major is born. We pirouette like comets, free spiraling through atmospheres we create and interrupt, leaving shallow footprints in our wake. Moab. I'm looking at Jeff Eisenberg and he keeps doing the silent clap. It's fun. Moab. Rain on red rock, darkening stone. Cliffs rise bleeding from the earth. Vascular pockets clot against paler paradox and Mancos deposits. Crossing the Colorado, we travel time beyond measure. Double rainbows burn against shale blue sky. Moab mist, gilt-edged clouds, glimpse of turquoise, keyhole sunset, terracotta towers. Mormons tried to settle this place of salt and sand and magic in the name of Joseph Smith. The mission paled against polytheism and Mother Earth's red arms. 3 Mormons died. The Utes remained unconverted. Today, Like Moses viewing the land of milk and honey from afar, I stand in a stormy sunset. Entrada sandstone glows in sudden sunlight, a burning bush risen from the ashes in fossil form. I watch in silence as the sun's flame softens into twilight. After the setting, silver evening. After the rain, puddles on sandstone. Air fresh with wet and the scent of juniper berries crushed underfoot. By dawn, Raven has stolen fire. He carries it glinting on obsidian feathers, blue-black mirror reflecting sun. Hummingbird. Percussive wing song, throb of muscle and sinew, sweet tooth and plain air. A cinnabar dash rises like fury, strokes the weathered verdigris of lamb's ear to paint cayenne and emerald across a simple sky. Dragon's blood shimmers and morphs along prism cells, catching light, hue and shade as changeable as flight. Tiny tyranny, feeder in the garden, whose tongue is a black snake urging Eve with sugared words to taste the apple's blossom, the pomegranate seed, to open the world with the nectar of knowing all that the gods have hidden. In the garden, lean close, whisper sibilant consonants, sweet vowels, dust them against my ears like monarch wings. Sigh out your rumors in crimson creases on red poppies. Say that perfection is bound within a flawless ripe tomato, a lovely woman. Words like mosquitoes nip along synapses, the lick of salt and sunlight. Hummingbirds pirouette with bee balm, fragrance flutters round about, flowery exhalations. This is the perfect moment, my first language, filling me with heat and blood. Go outside. Your moment, when it finds you alone without defense, will bring you to your knees. Singularity. We are outsiders shut indoors together. It's as though we're the degenerate equations mathematicians stumble into without recourse. We see ourselves as singularities, odd horizon events, mere quirks and foibles unconnected to anything or anyone. I stutter up against you, you against me. Here we are, caught on a gravitational edge where the metric could explode into infinity, while we try to fix components so they come out right. Your drunken mother, my father, mother, brother, neither of us ever learned to feel safe in the company of others. We expect quantum shocks and chaos. It's what we know. Still, I dream gravitational pulls that digress in space and time, new degrees of freedom where effect decreases at close range. Gulls drop like rags. Gulls drop like rags through rain falling in rivers. The bay chews and gnashes each bird as it settles into the slate chop of a storm. Two eagles, one a first-year juvenile, batter their way through sky more solid than air is meant to be. The adolescent, out of control, moves her wings as though a stroke is possible against 50-mile-an-hour gusts. She plummets 30 feet toward the water's toothy surface. A flash of white head and tail, the larger adult glides close. almost too close. At the last minute, both blast upward on outstretched wings, vertical, held steady against a crazy current of opportunity, of chance. What Ulysses knew. Phosphor ghost dances Discovery Bay in late August. Wavelets rise ribboned by a fire of siren songs. Pulled from the house, I walk the beach. I'm a Pisces, wary of water, the weight of it grasping at swimmers' legs. Tonight, liquid undulates, glows, lit from inside out. Set free from the mast of my fears, I listen open-eared, open-armed, eager. Drawn to sand where footprints spark and shimmer, star-dusted, I lean into the sighing breeze, listen for mermaid voices. I have forgotten what Ulysses knew about beauty. And this is my final poem. I wanted to end the reading with a little lighter approach. And this is a poem that might make you smile. Coitus. Two leopard slugs mate in midair, dangle from a strand of conjoined mucus, a transparent, shimmering rope. They spread tiny, flightless wing flaps, spiral round and round each other. Both are male and female capable. Each extends an organ. They entwine in milky translucence form a bellflower and trade sperm. It is an incredibly long sex scene, just the right amount of slow and easy. The small creatures are viscous with their own juices, almost liquid. Thank you.
In case anybody ever wondered how important the title of a poem is, that answers the question. Thank you so much for the lovely reading.
Thanks.
Okay, I have been in speaker view, but I'm going to go to gallery view in case anybody would like to wave at me to share that they would like to be part of the open mic. Just let me know. I'm in a grid view. Is anybody waving? Nobody's waving. Oh, I'm so glad you're able to join us, Carol Levin, my most stalwart attendee, neighbor, and sometimes replacement MC. Thank you so much. Okay, well, we shall move on now to Tamara K. Selman, who, as I mentioned, I had the honor of meeting in person at Centrum, and I see we have a Centrum room tonight. Also learning that it was an original save by Vintage Washington and the Preservation Network of Washington. So she'll be also, she is part of our anthology, and I'm promoting this tonight with free delivery, $12, deliver all throughout King County and points beyond for the anthology of Writers Craft, what do we call it? It's an About Time Writers Reading Series anthologies with early craft essays, and it's whatever stage you are in your writing process or your submitting process, it's helpful to you. So Tamara is a healthcare journalist and creative writer who lives in North Kitsap County. Her hybrid collection, Intention Tremor, will be published by Moonpath Press in late 2020. And it led me to kind of subtitle this reading that it is a reading with intention. So welcome, Tamara.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Peggy. I really want to say thank you to Pam. I'm not your mother, Pam Dion, because listening to your poems really, sometimes you find when through someone's poems that you discover that you're walking the same earth with them. And I feel like I'm walking those same roads with you. So that was really lovely. So I'm really appreciative of what you read tonight. So let me find my file. I just lost it. Can't go without it. There it is. Okay. Okay, and then thanks for everyone that showed up. It's so nice to see such a nice audience, and I see some people here that I know, so thanks for coming. And thanks for, hi, and then thanks for anyone who wants to be in the open mic. Come on, you can do it. It'll be fun. So also thanks to the Public Library, Seattle Public Library, Ballard Branch for hosting this event. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to be reading from my forthcoming hybrid collection, Intention Tremor. But first I wanted to, which that looks like this right now, because I've just got my cover finished, and that's just a comp, but it's not coming out till the end of the year. But I'm going to read from it tonight. It's the first time, so you guys heard it here first. Before I do that, I wanted to just show that I have this book that I have been published in also, and thank you, Esther, for allowing me the wonderful opportunity. And I wrote that essay or did that presentation in 2007. So that was like 13 years ago. I'm just going to read a really, really short piece, just the very beginning of it, because there's sections. And so I'm just going to read you the intro. And then if you like what you're hearing and you feel like you are part of the paradigm I'm talking about in this, then you should go buy this book and read it and read all the other good stuff that's in there too, because there's 30 years of experience covered in this, and it's really a great book. So the title of the piece, the presentation that they collected in this anthology, is called The Independent Candidate, or How to Have an Accomplished Writer's Life Without an MFA. Oh,
that was you. Okay.
Yes, that was me. Okay, so troublemaker that I am. Okay, so this was from February 8th, 2007. Many of today's undiscovered writers feel a tremendous pressure to earn an MFA, Master of Fine Arts, in creative writing in order to give legitimacy to their writing careers. I'm here to discuss the possibility that this is a manufactured notion about the contemporary writing life. In fact, you do not need an MFA to succeed, period. I used to struggle with the possibility of attending grad school to the point that in 1994, I actually registered for the MFA at Columbia in Chicago. A couple weeks later, I bowed out after learning I was pregnant. I realized the 3-hour round trip commute, the added homework, and the schedule were not things I could integrate into my new life as a mother. After that, I continued to reconsider the possibility, but found myself saying no every time because I didn't have the money or I didn't have the time. The first few times I said no, I felt envious of those who did have the money and time. So does that sound familiar to anybody? I bet it does. Then I rebelled against the whole notion after my writing took a left-hand turn and I was no longer writing traditional work that was particularly welcome in maybe a grad school environment, at least at that time. I think the things have changed quite a bit. So it was in my late 30s that I realized I was doing, to a certain degree, no pun intended, the things I thought I would only be able to do with an MFA. I was already doing them. So this is not an impeachment of the MFA programs. If I had the time and the money, I certainly would enter a program. I love school. I love the collegiate landscape, the homework, the learning. Maybe not so much right now because I kind of want to go to those classes. I'm a nerd, so maybe when I'm retired, maybe I'll go get my MFA just because it'll be so much fun. But for now, like so many of you, I just simply can't. Instead, I'm here to question the notion that MFAs are the only pathway to successful creative writing careers. I will debunk myths about writing programs, provide you with evidence that writers can succeed without advanced degrees, and then offer you tactics for replicating the MFA experience for yourself. And I'm going to leave you there. So you want to read the rest, you want to get the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey said. If you know who Paul Harvey is, you should pick up this book. Okay, back to Intention Tremor. All right. I am so excited to be reading from this collection. It's a hybrid, so there's poems, there's flash nonfiction, I don't know what else to call it, some essays, some very formal poetry as well as free verse. Oops, hold on. Okay, there we go. And that's why it's called a hybrid collection, but that's the way I am as a writer too. I write every form. I'm a journalist by trade. I actually write nonfiction for a living. So I just write whatever the story or the thing needs to be, however the form calls and presents itself. So this hybrid collection that I've written charts my life in the 5 years following my multiple sclerosis diagnosis in 2013. Multiple sclerosis is an autoimmune condition in which the immune system attacks brain tissue, leaving behind damage that's known as lesions, and a multitude of disabilities depending upon where those lesions are. For me, the damaged areas have impacted my ability to read, believe it or not, and caused symptoms ranging from permanent ear ringing, which is happening right now, physical sensations called paresthesias, balance and coordinating problems with both my arms and my legs, some pretty disabling fatigue at times, painful muscle spasms, and speech problems. Hopefully I won't have too many of those tonight. MS is currently without a cure, and scientists still don't really know what causes it. They have some good ideas, but until they know the root cause, they really can't cure it. So the proceeds from my book will go to the Accelerated Cure Project. Now they are using a unique approach to accelerate funding for MS research to cure MS and to enable people like me affected by MS so that we can live our best lives. So they've also been very supportive of literary efforts. There are other anthologies of people with MS, their writings, and they help support those too. So they're of special, fondness for me. So I'm going to start with the title piece. It's a prose poem that I wrote after one particularly long business trip. It was about 3 years after my diagnosis, and I think it wasn't a business trip. I was coming back from taking my daughter to college in New York, so it was exhausting in so many ways. Okay, Intention Tremor. The gate agent at LaGuardia informs me of storm-related flight cancellations, gives me a false-lashed stink eye as I take my new boarding pass, fingers quaking uncontrollably. It's not that bad. The gate agent's eyes roll. Listen, I want to tell her. If my flight had been early, if I was already home and not completely exhausted, my hands would still be doing this. It's a muscle puzzle my brain can't solve. My hands hang forgotten at my side until I reach for a cup of coffee, brace myself against a chair rail, or lift my fingers to push curls from my brow. There it is, the intention tremor. At least my hands twang painlessly, like bass guitar strings pulled too tight. But for the weakness of my wrists, all the dropped coffee cups, I might not even mind it. But in the plane aisle, I can't convince the flight attendant that I need assistance, raising my carry-on to stow above my seat. My hand's relentless jitterbug makes grasping even the lightest thing an illusion. I'm sorry, we can't help you, the flight attendant tells me, through sour pink lemonade lipstick. We can only help those who are actually disabled. When you hear that enough times, you like to believe you become desensitized to it. The involuntary fidget in my upper thigh joins in the dance then, choreographed to the rattle of leg muscles, which can't help but spasm in such tight and flexible quarters. Experience warns me if I reach up, I will surely lose balance and coordination. Simmer down, I silently command my postural tic, laughing at that impossibility. If I could only sit down, instead I'll probably fall down. What I recall more vividly than my insensitive hosts, however, is the traveler in the cross-aisle seat, faceless and not particularly gallant or chivalrous, a man more interested in his smartphone, who assists me without a word, a man who doesn't need to see a doctor's note. So although it's impossible to know when my MS began, my doctor and I traced my symptom clusters, which they kind of come in clusters, back to childhood. I'm one of the lucky ones with a milder case, if you can call it that, and slower progression, which is definitely true. I was not diagnosed until age 47, which makes mine a much better prognosis than most, and which explains a lot of these mysterious health concerns I've had across the span of my life. Here is a description in a prose poem of what I believe is my first MS symptom. It's called girdle band sensation by doctors, but among my peers, it's known as, sarcastically, I must say, the hug. Also, for those who are unaware, the term pleurisy used at the end of the poem refers to an old school reference to lung infection, which I didn't have at that time, but it just comes up. So, okay, August 1975. It first happened when she was a month shy of 10, a curly brown ribbon of a girl who played softball, fished for crappie, read books in her cool walkout basement on hot summer days, rode her bike in endless circles, a girl without a stitch of fat, a lean, muscular thing flush with the energy that radiated from the ever-curious coals of her brain. A perpetual motion kind of girl, but an obedient girl who rarely asked for attention, who rarely complained of anything except for going to bed at a decent hour. That day she would pick blackberries in the orchards across the street with one of the many best friends named Michelle she would have throughout her life. She laced her shoes, tucked her hand-me-down Wrangler cutoffs into place, grabbed the Tupperware bowl, and stood. There. Large grips, stiff and unrelenting, pinched her around the ribcage. She likened them to the curved claws of a 1960s TV show robot. Her fingers fumbled the bowl, banged in its hollow plastic voice across the wood parquet floor. Instinctively, she stood even straighter than before, tried to breathe, those intercostal efforts abandoned as the cinching grew severe. Her breaths came shallow, followed by stars in her eyes. Her grandmother sidled in from the kitchen. "Raise your arms! Raise your arms!" The girl tried to, but the pain seized fresh her ribcage, spasming. Her brown eyes pooled with involuntary tears. She dropped to the floor, a cat on all fours, writhing in the grips of an invisible vice. As quickly as it had stormed her body, the seizure released. She heaved, young lungs refreshing, tears dropping like rain to dot the squares of yellowed wood around her star-shaped hands. Her mother walked in then, concern in her eyes. "Just a touch of pleurisy," her grandmother said. Yeah, they didn't know much about MS back then. That was 1975. It was not till much later that they were actually, confirming a diagnosis, like a formalized diagnosis. So they didn't even bother to look, for that in a young person. So this next piece spotlights one of the unpleasant realities of living with a chronic illness hidden inside one's central nervous system. It's the old MRI. I get my next one next week. I used to have to do them twice yearly. Now I'm down to one, so I'm very happy and hope it comes back clear. Cross my fingers. And this is a little bit about what that feels like. The nth half-yearly MRI. Radiology techs wrap my feet in shapeless sheaths with rubber skids, swaddle me, neck to toe, in thin cotton blankets, the hospital's sarcophagus. Insert an IV for the contrast session. Shroud my eyes with a folded washcloth, crown me with earphones playing barely perceived music to prevent hearing damage. Please, no more damage. The exposed top of my head will be sliced by invisible magnetic forces into pictures. MRI was first used 7 years after my first MS hug to investigate the brains of other people with lesion activity. Those inaugural scans took 5 hours. Mine today will take 90 minutes. After the techs retreat to a control deck behind heavy glass, I am interred into the narrow tube, asked to lay motionless while drums bang strange patterns that I find oddly rhythmic enough to fall asleep to. Magnetic resonance is now familiar territory, removing my need for a lorazepam refill. This is not death. 45 minutes pass in perfect stillness superimposed over the spasm kink in my back. After they draw me from my high-tech tomb, unravel one edge of my mummy's wrap, near the thigh, prick the IV to start the GAD dye drip, send me back for a second harvest. Contrast session, the burn in the veins. It is so hot in there. Finally, they extract me from the tube, the IV pulled out, the wraps lifted. Sitting exposed in the cold, dark room, my senses reassert themselves. Cells expand, breathe, jump, squall like newborn babies clearing their lungs. I can't wait, still can't wait at age 52 to get up and walk away from these compassionate, if anonymous, keepers, to leave the hospital's familiar maze, hike the dirty city streets downhill to my ferry ride home to new normal, because at least on this rainy spring day, I can. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so glad to be here.
That went so fast. Thank you. I'm so glad. I know that you were supposed to do an anthology reading, I believe, way back in March, and knew that it wasn't safe. And so I'm so glad that we can have you all together with us tonight safely. Yeah. All right, making another open mic call. Oh, if Kevin J. O'Connor was here, he would volunteer. I
Can you
have
hear me, Peggy?
Yes, I can hear you.
I had you muted. I'll read something.
Okay, great.
You want me to now? Is that a good time?
It's a great time. Go for it.
Okay, let me get a book.
We get to see everybody's bookshelves. It's very nice. I don't know if you heard me before, Minnie, but I'm really making a big appeal, whether you've heard back about reading in November or December.
Where is it?
Fingers crossed.
Here we go. Okay, I'll read a few from Listening to Mozart, Poems of Alzheimer's. From Listening to Mozart, it was published by Cave Moon Press a few years ago. It's Poems of Alzheimer's. My love, who has gone away, came in a dream last night. He forgot to waken me. These are mostly haiku and tankas. When I awoke this morning, I thought your funeral was today. It was 3 years ago. It took you 8 years to die. All that time I waited for you to get better. Why didn't you? At Thornton Creek, I saw a cormorant sunning on a rock. I looked for you. You weren't there. Standing at our kitchen window, we could see Mount Rainier. Now new houses block our view. I don't know what the mountain feels, but we liked watching it change. Clouds came, seasons went. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. It always brings
You're
back
welcome.
memories for me of actually being at Abe's funeral. So I think of that often. It was incredibly moving.
Thank you.
I have not met Lauren Davis in person, but I'm very excited when, as I mentioned, about the opportunity to have people who sometimes wouldn't be able to make the ferry, as Tamara reminded us, that ferry, okay, the ferry back from normal, then back to like strange Seattle, to join us, and then get their car out of the garage promptly. By 7:45 in Ballard. So this is yet another silver lining. Lauren Davis is the author of Home Beneath the Church, forthcoming from Fernwood Press, and the chapbook Each Wild Thing's a Consent, published by Poetry Wolf Press. She holds an MFA, no judgment, from Bennington College writing seminars, and she teaches at the Writers Workshop and beloved Port Townsend imprint books. She is a former editor in residence at the Puritans Town Crier and has been awarded a residency at Hypatia in the Woods. Her work has appeared in over 50 literary publications and anthologies, including Prairie Schooner, Spillway, Poet Lore, Ninth Letter, and elsewhere. Goes to show you do not need to live in this, alleged literary city to be extremely literary and published. So big welcome for Lauren Davis.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And I just want to thank It's About Time and the Seattle Public Library for hosting us. It's really wonderful to be here. And Pam and Tamara, it's such an honor to read beside you. So just thank you for this honor to be here. I'm going to begin with some poems from my chapbook, Each Wild Thing's Consent, which was published in 2018 through Poetry Wolf Press. And then I'll end with some pandemic poems, which have appeared in various publications during this year, just to honor the time that we're in. Touring the French Basilica. Around us throngs of children twist to learn each stone and saint, their limbs jerking with the labor of reverence. Someone chants. Stained glass claws its way to beams, hope blessed. You lower your camera, cap the lens. You say, I just have to put it in my brain. The longer we stand, the more prayerful each visitor grows. We might as well be stone ourselves. Except the woman barely beyond the north facade. She stomps her foot to scatter pigeons, pops her gum. Inside, silent as candle flame. Outside, a clash of wings. I am a New Caledonia outlet nightjar. Unseen since 1998, I am nearly a lost breed. No one has heard my voice but you, a different genus of bird who sought and discovered me. I beat my wings against yours, unable to mate. But look, how groomed my semi-plumes, I pluck them into dead air. Come now. I'm ready to be collected beneath your breast. Let scientists say I dared to survive. That you came down from your sky to quiver against me. My last known touch. They will find me in the brushwood, virgin, but a song in my throat. We are so blessed to be in a part of the country just surrounded by water, so I finally get to write about water. land not required. Make a sailor out of me. I have been landlocked for so long on my little black beach, braiding kelp, christening seagulls. Your slope stretches out of the gloom, sighting my shore, anchored salt in the crease of your wrists. My body, unaccustomed to the sway of water, first rock me back and forth on sand. Train me how to hike the mast. In the berth, let me map oceans on your chest. We will test the theory of the flat earth. In the morning, waking to a hole of muddled latitudes, the helm each night trembling unattended. On the deck. On the deck, your neck bent to let me shave the soft hairs above your collar line. The gesture of the blade like one lick of a wave reshaping the beach a few steps from our door. How the water at the bay's edge comes and goes and takes a handful of stones each time it retreats. Boats motor by, kicking up a surge, more sand stretched and remade. Man's handprints on each silt grain. A crow finds his dish in the husk of a washed-up crab. A silverfish shows his face. I landscape you fine as the sandcastles of lords. I open the typography of your neck to the sun's burn. Raise your chin, king, and reclaim your country. But most of all, beloved, never, not ever will I braid your absence through my hair. I will not accept the single-bodied bed. I hear you in the ceiling. Your breath fogs the dark. Why did I come here where your body could not go? Remember when I brought you to the woods to show you my owls? How quickly they greeted you, coiling down from the trees before we even turned the trail. How small is my heart that I felt jealousy then. Each day I leave the cabin and wait for the orcas off season. Madronas undress their layers so that I might gaze a little longer. I keep a piece of fossilized wood that matches yours. I hold it to my lips. But most of all, I am a woman in communion, her ear to the wall. I grew up in the southeast of the United States, where everything is very flat, and then I moved up to Vermont, where all the roads are very well labeled. So I didn't know when I moved here, you couldn't just drive up into the mountains at any point. So I got stuck one day, so I turned it into a love poem. What you gonna do? Mountain Incidental. I would, if I could, bed you now, but the birch trees. If you had seen how they stand side by side like rooted remnants, you'd know. They nearly informed of other worlds. I am without fault, my car in the ditch. The ice appeared beyond a bend, the elevation felt minor. Have faith, I am only temporarily mislaid. I tread down the mountainside in the rain. Native. Remember us in our big red truck, vacationing along the Quinault Lake Loop, frightening the foliage from its sleep. Roofed by dank rainforest, we knew we were not alone, though we saw no bird, no beast. You said it's beautiful, but do we really belong here, where creatures hide? Then an elk herd stomped across the dirt road and you braked, shocked. The fattest turned to stare over his long beard, to know or warn us. Yes, my love, we belong, but on soil-stained knees, asking for each wild thing's consent to stand. I want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are in very trying times, and I just want to thank all you readers and listeners for showing up for the written word. There are so many emotions to be felt right now, and just getting up every day is something to celebrate, you know, that we keep on keeping on. So in that vein, these are some pandemic poems. This first one was written in the beginning of the pandemic when those heartbreaking, horrendous videos and photos were coming out of China before we really knew what was going on. I once vacationed in their land. They cremate bodies in the country I will not return to. Here a man stands over a dirt patch in his grass, arms crossed. In the quarantined country, not my country, I purchased a pearl necklace made of 3 strands. The clasp does not keep, it goes unworn. Today they'll give a new number of the dead, though no one fools us more than ourselves. One time I tried to climb the Great Wall, I tired quickly. Nothing about me has ever been particularly strong. How long can one hold their breath beneath the ground? 1 Mississippi, 2. Breakfast invitation in the time of COVID. I cannot cross your mother's doorstep. If something dwells on me, my hands like knives. For her you slice melon, butter bread. I walk the block a single circle. The neighbor's dog throws the alarm. What is it to be possibly unclean? I do not tell your mother she has done good work raising you to be the man I will love in my imperfect ways. I save that for a safer day. My hands without my hands almost certainly diseased for the love of your mother, their edges sheathed. Doctor visit during the pandemic. When she must make me vulnerable, when she unhooks the paper mask and here are my lips and tongue. My face disrobed, she never warns me. She touches my chin with an ungloved hand. Tomorrow I will feel alarmed I allowed her, that I surrendered like a child to her consideration. I leave with a bag of pills. I leave into an artificial light, down an unfamiliar hall, and I wonder, when she returns home, how long she stands in front of the mirror, examining the face that all her days meets the breath of strangers. And I just wanted to end with a pandemic love poem because though there are pandemics, love does go on. Day sleeping during the pandemic. You say 2 words in your dream, but by the time we rise, their meaning has left me. At the end of every breath is a small death. Your hands on my hand, which rests at your chest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I feel like even though this isn't your place of origin, that as Tamara put, you were all sort of walking the same roads tonight. And if anything, during the pandemic, we are all walking the same roads. So thank you for giving us also a love poem, because the truth is that life does go on. And there are very beautiful things that are happening regardless of, our situation. So, very nice. I actually, I just have to show off. I have a pandemic love poem behind me in the form of a quilt that was made for me by some of my Cancer Lifeline writers. And it was, the idea was evidently conceived by someone who the quilt was completed in the last in the last days of her life, and this was her work along with another Cancer Lifeline writer, and including many of my other writers. Unbeknownst to me, they were making it over the course of the months before Ileani's death. And so it is something I look on every day and find great joy in. And there has been no greater gift to me during the pandemic. The presentation they had planned was not able to take place. So there is so much beauty, and that has absolutely been shown, was shared tonight. So last chance for anyone who wants to have a go at closing out more beautifully than Lauren did. No pressure. But otherwise, this is the chance now for us to unmute and congregate as we normally would before the librarians kind of have to get us out. So thank you all for coming. I realized I didn't have the names, but we have 4 readers from the Jack Straw 2020 series. It's become somewhat of a tradition to host the Jack Straw writers during a crossover event, and we'll welcome them. And then I'll be working on the lineup for the rest of the year. And I'm just delighted that we basically were able to have Pam in her regularly scheduled appearance, and then bringing to us other Kitsap writers with Tamara and Lauren. So thank you all. And, Big Peach, hello. Isn't this beautiful? We couldn't decide on the cover. And then we realized we had this incredible local artist, Denny, who used to come and do open mic. And sometimes he'd drum, and sometimes he'd sing, and sometimes he'd show us artwork. And so it was one of those things that, like, we suddenly realized that the answer to the cover was literally in front of us. So it's a beautiful book. So thank you all, and feel free to chit chat.
Bye.